balmy shores of sunny Florida to the cold winds of Chicago and everywhere in between. You're watching the Red Wimet Show, live, coast to coast.
Hello, folks. Today is Wednesday, June 18th, 2025, and I am Red Wimet. How you doing, folks? Well, I thought about it, and instead of waiting till next Monday, I decided to do it today. Adam and I didn't have a show going, so I figured, what the heck? I might as well just go live. And I could have recorded this, but I figured I'd go live. It's different. D Swizzle. That's the first time I've seen you here. D Swizzle. Good to see you. If you like the show, like and subscribe. And hey, back to you. At any rate, I figured I'd continue or do a continuation of what I did last week. And that was, well, Monday. It wasn't last week. It was Monday. But it was my ride from hell with Curt Hansen. And after that ride was done, after that was finished, I left there and I started thinking about things. And yes, I had threatened his life, but that's nothing compared to what he put me through. So I said, this is getting too crazy. I'm out of this. I'm through with it. I'm through with the porn. I'm through with the store. I'm through with all of it. I'm just going to give it all back. And it won't be to Curt. We had a partner, Marshall Cafano. And I drove over to the neighborhood at Grand and Ogden. And I asked a few of the guys, I said, where's Marsh at? And they said, he's over at the Red Fox Inn. This is about maybe, I don't know, 7, 8, 9 o'clock at night, somewhere around there. He was probably having dinner. Hello there. Steve Sly from Lockport. Thank you. Thank you, Steve. Hey, Robert Murphy. How you doing, guy? So I headed on over to on North Avenue. I went west. It was on the north side of the street on North Avenue. And I pulled in the parking lot at the Red Fox Inn. And when I got out, it's a real nice place, swanky. It had a mezzanine kind of with a door from the outside and then a door on the inside, glass all around it so you could see everything was very visible. But it made it so that it kind of kept the air from going in deep. And this was in the wintertime, too. This had to be, let's see, that was Labor Day. All this baloney started. And it ended up, that was September, October. This is November. It was right around Thanksgiving time, just before Thanksgiving. And Marshall was in there. And I got out, I parked my car. Excuse me, folks. I parked my car. After I parked my car, I went inside. And there was Marshall. He was sitting over at the bar. And I walked right over to him. Didn't sit down. I just walked over to him. And I gave him the keys. I had a big key ring, probably around this big around. Big key ring. It had all the keys on it. Keys for every coin box. Keys for the doors. Everything. And I put a little thing on there which was written. And that was the combination of the safe. And I gave it to him. And I said, here. He said, what's this? And I said, I'm through with you people. And he just looked at me. Kind of like I'm looking at you right now. Oh, that's weird. And I said, I thought you were people of honor. I said, you guys don't have any honor. and I just walked away. I didn't get very far. They had a ramp that went up to the door in there. It was like it was covered in carpeting, but I'm sure there was cement underneath it. And as I was going up the ramp, uh, two big bruisers came beside me, one on each side, and they picked me up by the arms, underneath the arm, elbow type, off the ground, turned me around, and they brought me back down. And meanwhile, I'm doing a walking number with my legs while I'm up in the air, but I'm not going anywhere. It's kind of like a comedy, but I wasn't a comedy. I was angry. I was very angry at the time. And they brought me back to a smiling Marshal Cafano, who turned around and looked at me and said, "What's this all about?" And I said, "I'm through. I've had it. That's it. You got the keys. That's it. I'm out. Curt told me I'm out, and I'm out. I quit. That's over. I'm tired of getting shot at." And Marshall said, "Sit down and have a drink." I said, "I don't want to drink with you. I have no respect for you. I don't want to drink with you." And I started to walk away. We had a repeat performance. The guys that were picking me up again, brought me back. And Marshall had that sinister smile on his face. And he said, "Sit down, relax, have a drink." And I said, "I don't drink with people like you." And he just smiled. And he said, "Sit down." Same thing. I started to leave. It was bad. So the guys that had me, they brought me back several times. I don't know how many times this happened. And finally, I got to the point where I realized that I was not going to get out of there. I wasn't afraid, but I knew I wasn't going to get out of there unless I kind of went along with the program. So the next time they brought me back, and he said, "Sit down, relax." I did. I sat next to him on a bar stool. And he called the bartender over. He said, "What are you drinking?" And I said, "Scotch. Give me a shot of scotch with a water back." And the bartender came over. He asked me what kind of scotch. And I told him. Bartender came over and poured me a shot of scotch. And I went, drank it, and got up and started to leave. That didn't work either. Marshall just, he went like this, "Come back, come on." And he was very quiet, very easygoing, not demanding. But he said, "Sit down, calm down, relax, have another drink. Tell me what happened." I said, "You want to know what happened? You really want to know what happened?" And I told him what happened. I said, "Curt took the store away from me, even though I have the lease in my name, even though I have the electric in my name, the telephone, everything's in my name. But Curt told me to get out of there or he was going to kill me. And he's taken a few shots at me on different occasions. And I just can't deal with him. I mean, I'm through. We had a partnership, a marriage, so to speak. And he said, "You've got a partnership and a marriage with me." And I said, "And this is called a divorce because I don't want anything to do with you anymore." And he said, "Oh, okay. So come with me for a second." He started walking towards the front door. At the front door, there is a payphone. You know, those things that we used to have, payphones. It was even a dial phone. Dial. But he put in a dime, and he was holding the receiver to his ear, and he said, "Dial his number." And while he's dialing the number, I took the receiver, and because I wanted to hear, the dial tone and everything else. And I dialed Curt's number. I knew it off heart. His home number. He was at home. He's always at home at 10 o'clock. He used to watch the news. So at any rate, at 10:30, he was asleep, and that was it. I looked, Marshall, when it started to ring, evidently he could hear it. It was kind of quiet in that little mezzanine where we were. And he snatched it out of my hand. And I just kind of turned my back a little bit. And he was very quiet. And he said, yeah, this is me. I'm going to meet you. And he put his hand over my mic. He said, where's the nearest restaurant to the store? I said, that'd be just Stagecoach Inn on the corner of North Avenue and Wells. And he said, I'm going to meet you at the Stagecoach Inn. About a half hour. Click. Hangs up the phone. That's all I heard on my end. So he said, you got your car here? I said, yeah. He said, come on, we're going for a ride. Okay. I really want to get out. I don't want to be in this at all. He said, just bear with me. He said, this guy, he's never going to bother you again. It's your store. It's your idea. You put it all together. Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it. So I get in the car, and Marshall sits next to me. And these two big guys, who later on, one of them became a bodyguard for me. His name was Dick Hoyt. Huge man. He had to be about maybe 6'1" and weighed about 300 some odd pounds. And he was strong. He used to pick up chimney blocks with one hand, 12-inch chimney blocks. He would pick them up with one hand like this and set them in place. Big man. Okay. How you doing, guy? Haven't seen you in a long time either. If you wait a little bit, I'll answer your question. I promise you. Okay? So, we're driving downtown, and there's a light bit of snow out. It's not real heavy, but it's light. This is 1974. It's November, and it wasn't really there was snow on the ground that hadn't, melted, but this was a light snow night. And by the time we got down there, it was past 10, about 11, something like that. And the street was dead. It was a weeknight, but Wells Street was just dead. And I parked over where the old Dr. Scholl's was, and the plant was closed, but there was parking all the way along there on Wells Street. I pulled in and parked, and Marshall got out right away. He was on the passenger side, and I pulled in head first, just towards the building. And he walked. He said, I'll be back later. And he walked just down the center of the street. There was no cars. But he walked down the street, and I looked at this little old man. He was probably 68 years old, 69 years old. And he was wearing a coat, winter coat, 5 feet, walking down the center of the street. And I wondered, he's alone. I mean, is he comfortable? I mean, what gives with him? I mean, it just didn't. I've never seen an older man like that just take control the way he did. Now, the other guys, they said, come on, Red. I said, I'm not going in there. We were in front of my store. And they said, come on, you're with us. They were laughing. And I said, I'm not going in there. That guy's got a sawed-off shotgun. And he said, yeah, don't worry about it. Come on. There's no way I'm not going in there. It's okay. They went in. I would say less than 5 minutes later, there was a guy who had a girl, and they both came out. They got in a pickup truck that was in the driveway, and they went tearing out of there like you can't imagine. They just disappeared. They were gone. And then the door opened up, and I was looking back there. The door opened up, and Dick hollered out to me. He said, hey. He said, come on in now. And so I came in. There was nobody in the store. And so he latched the door. He locked it. And I went to the office, and I had a key to the office, so I opened up the office. No locks were damaged on anything. And as soon as I opened up the office, uh, Johnny Rogers showed up at the door. Evidently, Marshall had told him to meet me there. And so Johnny came in. Somebody let him. And these other two guys were just walking around looking at the place. Let me do what I wanted to do. I grabbed a 5-gallon bucket, empty bucket, a pail. As a matter of fact, it came from Deming, New Mexico. It was one of the pails that Tony sent me. I used to get a big stack of them, probably maybe 50, 60 high. And they used to put pickles in them. They were for food grade. But anyway, I had these pails or buckets, whatever you want to call them. And they had wire handles on them. So I went around. I had 18. At that time, I only had 18 booths, coin booths. But I went around, opened them up, and I had quarters in. I didn't have, at that time, we had quarters. We didn't have tokens. And I opened it up and took one by one and kept tossing them in there. Well, when I got to the end and I dumped all the machines, there was like over 3/4 of a bucket high in quarters. So I carried them back to the office, and I just laid brand new carpeting on the office floor. So I dumped the quarters on the floor, and Johnny Rogers and I sat there on the floor, and we counted these quarters. We put them in stacks of $10. So all over the floor, you saw these stacks of $10. I had 2 big tables in there. They were nightclub tables. They had like, it's not leather. It's not vinyl either, but it's got a little give to it. They were on, the tables were covered in that. So we ended up putting these on the table too. It turned out that there was $1,000, maybe $1,000.50, something like that. And it took us quite a while to stack these things up and get them ready. And I heard some pounding on the front door. And one of the bigger guys, went over, opened up the door while I was still counting. I didn't have a coin counter at that time. I was just starting out. So as we were trying to get all this arranged so we can make a count, Marshall at the door, comes to the office door, and he looks inside, and he looks at the ground, and he's just looking at the money, and he says, wow. He's got a twinkle in his eye. He said, how did we do? Very quiet. And I said, looks about $1,000. That's good. That's very good. And so I asked him, I said, what happened with Curt? Because he went to see Curt. He said, don't ever ask me that question again. I don't ever want you to ask me that question again. Okay? And I just, okay. He said, that guy's never going to bother you again, ever. He said, if he even calls you or talks to you, I want you to get a hold of me right away. And he said, if you can't get a hold of me, one of these guys can. But I spend time in the neighborhood, and I spend time at the Red Fox Inn. You can usually find me there. And then he gave me a number. He said, you can reach me at this number. Anything happens, you got to promise me you'll call me. I said, sure, no problem. And just then, the phone in the office rings. And I go pick up the phone. Hello. And I hear this voice. Billy, what are you trying to do? Get me killed? Billy, do you know what happened? That guy was going to kill me. And I said, really? And he's, yeah, really. And I'm looking over at Marshall at the doorway. He's standing in the doorway with a smile on his face. He's looking to money. And I say really loud. He said, I said, that guy you're talking about, that guy is standing here right now. That guy told me if you called me, saw me, any contact in any way whatsoever, I had to promise him that I would tell him. Not a word was said. All I heard was click. And that was it. That was the end of it. So Johnny Rogers had taken he divided up the money, and Johnny wasn't that bright. Alva Johnson Rogers was not that bright at all. I mean, bright at all. He thought he was going to take half the quarters, and he shoved it over by Marshall. This is your half. This is my half. And so Marshall looked at me, and he said, "I'd like mine in cash, in an envelope." And I said, "No problem." I had maybe 3,000-4,000 in the safe, and Curt hadn't robbed me. I took the money and I counted it out in $20 bills and put it in an envelope and handed it to Marsh, my hand to his. And he said, "Thank you." He said, "I'll be by every Monday. And every Monday, I want you to have $500 for me." And I said, "Okay." He said, "I don't care if you make $1 or you make $1 million. I want $500 every week." And I said, "Okay, that's the deal. I promise." And we shook hands. That man kept his word. But later on, what happened is he couldn't be there to pick it up. And he was kind of supporting Johnny Rogers. They were partners. So Johnny was getting $250 a week, and Marshall was getting $250 a week. And Johnny was taking the money. I was giving him Johnny the money. But nobody ever stopped and counted with me. And believe me, that was a beginning count. Later on, it got bigger. It wasn't $1,000 a week. It was maybe $10,000 a week that came out of there in quarters. It got to be so big that I didn't like to have that many quarters around. So I went out and bought tokens. But Marshall kept his word to the very end. I had envelopes every week. And sometimes I wouldn't see him for 2 weeks or 3 weeks or a month. But when he did, I had the dates on the envelopes, just a white envelope. I had the money in there and a rubber band around him if there were several. And when he would come by, I'd give them to him. That was the arrangement we made. Over the years, things got crazy. When Marshall went away, well, first of all, I have to explain to you, Johnny Rogers. FOHMA. Anyway, we'll go with R0024. Fo. Man in a football jersey. I don't know exactly what you want to know about Johnny Rogers, but I'll tell you some of it now and tell you whatever you really want to know, whatever happened to him. I'm guessing what you said. Mickey Griggs, good to see you. Dave Grimpy, good to see you, guy. Hit that like button. Thank you. Yes, hit that like button. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. I need all the help I can get. At any rate, I've only been doing this since 2016. People tell me I should quit. I don't want to quit. I really like telling my stories. I really do. I got a lot of stories to tell. At any rate, I say any rate a lot. It's a filler. Hi, Gilly. How you doing? Chainweaver, you're here. If you guys don't talk up, I don't know if you're here or not. At any rate, what happened is we went on, and the store was very profitable, extremely profitable. And when Marshall went out of town, the first thing that happened before Marshall went out of town, I was making, I invented Rush, and I was making that. And I was giving Marshall 25% of my proceeds on Rush. And okay, I got it. Faux hammer. Okay, I got you. I got it now, buddy. Faux hammer. So Marshall wasn't too well liked by the guys in the neighborhood. That was the Grand and Ogden area. And we never called it the Patch. I mean, that was the name that people that lived outside there really gave it. I never called it the Patch. We just say Grand and Ogden. Everybody knew what it was. So, and Joey was always there. And so was the rest of the guys from the Grand and Ogden crew, our West Side crew. But one day, Johnny Rogers comes to me, and he was helping me with the Rush. I didn't want him to, but he was doing it anyway. And he said, "You're out. Don't come here to the factory anymore." And the factory was something that I talked to the landlord. I made all the arrangements. Johnny Rogers was a convict. Nobody would do business with him. So the factory was in an industrial area right off of Lincoln Avenue, or Elston Avenue, excuse me. And I knew it was in Angle Street. So not long after that, he disappeared. He was gone. And so I went and looked, and he took my father reactor. I had maybe $40,000 worth of equipment. At that time, that was a lot of money. And he took it. But I heard stories from different people. I never went in there to look. He was making Quaaludes. He had the chemical composition to make Quaaludes in powder. And then what he used to do is he'd press them. He had a pill press. He went to a place where they sold the pill press, and he traded in my father reactor, which was, I mean, that thing was huge. So that's where my equipment went. When I got there was nothing there, and he was gone. And from what I heard, and Faux Hammer, this is the answer to your question, what happened to him. He was arrested in Nogales, Mexico, crossing the border with drugs. And the FBI had him in custody. Hank Schmidt went down there and told him he wanted to debrief him. He wanted to go into witness protection program, which he did. But before he went in the program, Hank went down and talked to him. And anything he could tell him, he told him. Anything he knew, he said. He testified against Joey. He testified against Marshall. He testified anybody, and we all talked about it. The guys would come to me and they'd say, "You know something? That guy was trouble. I knew he was trouble from that day Marshall brought him here." He said, "But we couldn't say anything to Marshall. I mean, he'd been around a long time. He was a friend of Sam Giancana's. So it was what it was." But as far as the money went, it was a deal I made with Marshall. And when Johnny Rogers was gone, just before he left, he said, "How about you buy me out?" I said, "Buy you out?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "You give me $1,500. I guess he needed the money to leave or something like that. He said, "You give me $1,500. And he said, "Then you'll only owe $250 a week." I thought about it and I said, "Yeah." I gave him $1,500, maybe 2 days later. And when I did, then Marshall used to come by my house at 4121 Street. He used to come by my house and stop there. He liked talking to me every so often. And we'd have a drink. We'd have some scotch and sit around and talk. And then what happened was uh, he was too active. And so he said, you know Phil Amato? And I said, yeah, that's Jimmy Kozo's father-in-law. He said, he's going to come over and pick the money up from you if you don't want to drop it off at his place. If you're in the neighborhood, drop it off. But I'm going to get all my money from Phil. And so I said, okay, no problem. And that's how it happened. As far as Rogers went, uh, it wasn't like I was extorted. I mean, this was a deal I made in the very beginning. But the FBI said because Marshall was no longer around and other people were coming saying, well, we want his money, which is something that happened to Danny Seifert. He had partners in Milwaukee Phil. When he died, Phil died, the deal died with him. And Joey Lombardo came around with Tony Spilaccio, and they said, this is what we're going to do. And he didn't argue with those guys. And he was getting good money, but the bottom line was IRS got all of them, and they were laundering money. So he wouldn't listen, and he wound up dead. A lot of these people wound up dead that I look back at. But in my case, it wasn't that bad. I would give the money to Phil, and that gave me a good reason to talk to Phil if I wanted to know something. They called Phil the Brain. That was his nickname, Phil Amato. They called him the Brain. That was Jimmy Kozo's father-in-law. His daughter was Tanine. And he also had a son by the name of Frank Amato. He ran the bingo parlors with Philly Kozo. And that's just the way it was. But the deal was pretty nice. Marshall, there were other businesses that I had that Marshall helped. He backed me going into them. And as soon as he got his money back, it was all mine. He didn't care. And he was off doing other things. He wanted big money. He wasn't looking for $250 a week, $350 a week. As Johnny Rogers said to me one time, he says, you don't know my guy. That doesn't even buy him his clothes for the week. His shirts are $100. And when he orders them, he orders a dozen. So it was a different way of living. And of course, I kept my cards close to my vest and never told them exactly how much money I was making. I hope that answered your question. But Johnny Rogers went into witness protection at Nogales, Mexico. And he was caught with drugs on the border. A lot. Not a small amount, but a lot. And after he did, he testified against Erwin Weiner. He testified against Joey Lombardo at the sentencing hearing with him and Alan Dorfman. He testified against Marcia Cafano at the bombing of Ray Ryan in 1977. Roger was a professional witness for the government. What they had him on, I was told what they had him on was so bad. And he was like 59, 60. If he'd have gone back to prison, no, wait a second. He was 50, 52, 50, 52, 53. But if he'd have gone back to prison, he'd have never come out. I think they had him for like a good 30-year sentence. So the only thing he could do was come out. He's dead now. He died before COVID. He did show up for Family Secrets. He was there. And everything that I said, he amplified it. He just amplified it. But he had more of a closer relationship with Joey about business than I did. He talked about arsons that he committed on behalf of Joey Lombardo. He talked about Tony Pellicano. He talked about a lot of things. It was crazy. But Dave Crimpy, Shannon, my grandfather had a grill right over at the Cicero side called The Spot back in the day. Okay. I never heard of it. But then again, I don't know everything. So anyway, this is my story. You're welcome, buddy. You're most welcome. The hammer. Faux hammer. Enemy hammer. The ties. Where are we going here? The ties between Ray Ryan, Johnny Roselli, Marshall, and Tony were very interesting. Tony didn't like Tony Spilaccio. Did not like Johnny Rogers at all. And when he knew Tony was going to be around, when Rogers knew he was going to be around, he stayed pretty close to Marshall because Marshall was his protection. Tony didn't butt heads with Marshall. Marshall was too close to Paul Ricca, and he was also too close to Tony Accardo, and he was also too close to, at that time, Sam Giancana, who was in Chicago at that time. Was Johnny Rogers a made guy? No, he was not made. As a matter of fact, he was an associate like I was. The way he even got involved was Marshall met him in prison. That was his cellmate in prison. And they used to play handball together and that sort of thing. Johnny was a hillbilly from a small town in Florida called Lakeland and in Polk County. And I mean, he was really a hillbilly, very much a hillbilly, like you never saw before. He was born and raised there, a pyromaniac. When he was a kid, he went to Dozier School for Boys, and he was beaten and abused as a kid. He was really a weird guy, very weird. He had a very weird sense of humor. The only reason he was at the Grand and Ogden crew was because of Marshall. What happened was he was a jailhouse lawyer. All he did was read books. He was in there for bank robbery. He robbed some bank in New Jersey. And he got Marshall's sentence cut short. And Marshall was grateful. So he said, when he got out, Marshall said he hired a good lawyer for him. And he gave him a job in Chicago. He went out and leased him a car right away. Marshall treated him like gold. He was very grateful. Marshall did not like prison. As a matter of fact, he was very upset at Ray Ryan. He had an attitude of, he used to say this often. Every time that guy, when we were talking, anybody would mention Ray Ryan's name, it was bad. And he said, every time that guy takes a breath, he's breathing my air. So it was that way. Scott H. Did I ever? No, I never passed Ronnie Jarrett. We never passed, cross paths. Hammer, faux hammer. Two guys don't hear much about Chucky Nicoletti and Jerry Danino. I just did if you look back, I did a story on Chuck Nicoletti, and he was a good friend of Milwaukee Phil's. They were like very tight guy. I mean, Phil and him were very close, although I didn't know the guy. I knew Phil. And I'd see him with Phil, but I never really spoke to him. It's one of those kind of things he just didn't do. I never went out of my way. Ryan Brown, Red, if I may stray off topic, you may. Momentarily. How close was Frank Schweiss to whacking Steve Tushin? Ultimately handed up to Tushin. Very interesting, Ryan. Good, glad you asked the story. How close was he? That close. He was clocking him every day. He had a pistol with a silencer. And he told me one day when he was clocking him, Wayne Bach was with him. Big guy. One side of the car, Wayne Bach was in, and one side, Frank was in. The car was like this. It just, Wayne Bach was just a big guy. They were in some kind of Pontiac. I forget what it was. But anyway, they were very close to kill him. But they didn't just want to kill him. In many cases, just like Danny Seaford, they wanted to kidnap him and then kill him later. But what happened with Steve? The day I arrested or the FBI arrested Frank Schweiss, Steve was in custody. He was at the MCC, and they had him in uniform, or an orange jumpsuit, and they approached him and they asked him. They played a tape for him where he saw Schweiss was going to kill him in the tape, and he also heard about Patsy Riccardi being murdered in the tape, and he just shook his head, didn't say anything when they asked him if he wanted to testify against them. He just shook his head, never said one word. After he did his time in prison, Jimmy McGuire called me from IRS CID, and I was in Florida at the time. And he said, "Hey, Red, walk outside, take your cordless phone with you." And he said, "Look towards the north." And he said, "I want you to holler as loud as you can. They did it." I said, "What'd you do?" He said, "We convicted Tushin." And he said, "We got him on the income tax evasion." And I said, "What's he going to do?" And he said, "About 15 years. Well, he only did about 8 out of the 15. But that was enough. It was very hard on him. He did time in Tennessee, and he did time in another place. But I was told by many people that it completely changed his whole life. He was a very docile person. He walked very effeminately, and everybody predicted he wouldn't have a good time in prison. And he didn't, even though he was wealthy. He didn't have a good time in prison. He didn't like getting up and picking cotton, which they made him do. There's a lot of things that they made him do. When he first got out of prison, he was on parole. He would make tape recordings at the Bijou Theater. So when you called in to see how things were going, he would say, "The government here is a dictator. This is like Nazi Germany." He was Jewish. And he said, "This is like not Nazi Germany. They can take your rights away from you. They can do anything you want." They would say everything on this tape recording after he gave the showing of what was playing. And he was very bitter. I will tell you this. I made the guy a multi-millionaire because nobody bothered him after that. His lawyer was Louis Carbonaro, who was a mob guy. But he didn't get really that much. He didn't want to get involved. And when Louis died, his wife, the building was in Louis's name. That's how Steve protected it when he went to prison. He put it in Louis Carbonaro's name, the sale. It's in a land trust. And he dodged getting the building seized because they seized a lot of other things. and took it. Actually, Steve's wife testified against him also, Steve Tushin. But what happened to him? I don't know. He dodged a bullet on that one, man. Could have been real bad, but it wasn't. Okay, we're going back here. Robert Murphy, when do you think the golden era of the outfit was? I would say it's the 50s and 60s. You're wrong. I would say it's the 60s and 70s. That was the golden era. Maybe the late 50s, a couple of years. And 80s. 60s, 70s, and 80s. There was 30 years of very big profit. Next question. Spartan 75. Hi, Spartan 75. Hey, subscribe if you can. Hello, Red. Did you ever stop into Mad Dogs in Las Vegas in the 70s and 80s? No. I never made a trip to Las Vegas in the 70s and 80s. Tony was out there, and it was one of the things that we agreed on, that I just wouldn't do it. Sean, if I may be so kind to ask, what is the topic, please? The topic was, the original topic was Marshall Cafano, and what happened after my ride from hell, which was on the last episode that I did Monday, a few days ago. I did an episode on Marshall Cafano, and Curt Hansen, really. It was on Curt Hansen, but it involved me telling Curt Hansen, you threatened me 1,000 times. You said you're going to kill me. How many times have I ever threatened you? And he said, never. And I said, I'm telling you now. You keep this shit up, I'm going to kill you. And after we had that talk, I picked it up today with what happened. What happened was I went to Marshall Cafano and said I quit. I didn't say, I want you to do something for me. I just said, I'm through. I'm out of here. But he saw me as a better partner, more honest. I was young, energetic, and I was climbing to the top. I was a moneymaker. Curt was older, a good 30 years older than I was. And he was a goofball. He used to be a bail bondsman until he beat some guy up and killed him. Sean, what is the outfit? The outfit was basically a faction of the mafia in Chicago. And it got its name way back in the 20s when Al Capone used to talk to people from New York, and they would call it the family, our family, this. And he would say, my outfit, because they weren't all Sicilian. They weren't all Italian. Al Capone did not discriminate. Al Capone had people that were from Poland. They were Jews. It didn't matter. If you had a skill, he had a use for you. And if you wanted to climb the ladder up, you didn't have to be Italian. You could be Greek. You could be any nationality. All he cared about was money. That's all. Sean, hell meaning separation from God? I don't know what you mean, Sean. Fohammer. Did you ever have any dealings with Tokyo Joe Edo? No, I did not. He was in the gambling business off of Rush Street. I knew his boss, Vince Solano. Nice guy. I got along with him quite well. But it was what it was. Yes, very much so. Gussie Alex goes all the way back to the days of Capone. I mean, it was really Gussie Alex got along with quite well, kind of a protege with Paul Ricca. and he got along with that whole. He was at that echelon, even though he wasn't. He wasn't Italian. Yes, I said my drive from hell. It had nothing to do with Satan. Believe me. If you want to watch it, please, Sean, watch it. You'll understand. You'll understand what it. That's for people. Actually, it's for people that really know me or might have read my book. Uh, it just is what it is. Pro tape. Did you know a junkie? I didn't know any junkies. Named Bruce Monroe. He owned a restaurant on Broadway called Sunny Day Records. No, I didn't. And believe it or not, I didn't associate with junkies. And that, as a matter of fact, Tony Spilaccio and Milwaukee Phil and Joey Lombardo told me from day one, we don't want you using drugs. We don't want you around people that use drugs. If you do, you'll only get one warning. After that, you won't know it's coming. And they said it in a very serious way, and I took it very seriously. BSJ, great show, Red. Got to run. Okay. Thanks for stopping by, buddy. Good to see you. Sean, Al Capone would have been nice. Al Capone would have been nice when it suited him. I think he was. Most of the bosses were. They were laughed. They were jovial. All the ones I didn't know Al Capone. I don't go back that far. But the ones I did know, they weren't really. I mean, I knew Tony Spilaccio quite well. And some of the younger people say, "Oh, he was a mean da." It was. I didn't see a mean bone in his body. I mean, we used to hang around, sit around, drink scotch, and have a good time, talk about women. We never talked about business because we agreed not to. But he was an easygoing guy. Joey Lombardo, a lot of people say they saw death in his eyes. I never saw it. That's just the way I was. I hope that answers your question, Sean. Scott H. Red, did you have any interaction being an informant or when you started out with the outfit? Or did that all come out? I'll tell you, Scott, it was designed so it never come out. It was me that decided, and that was the big changeover. After Tony was murdered in June of 1986, it was me that jumped up and said, I'm coming out. I'm going to testify. And I want to take the biggest guy down I can. At the time, it was Frank Schweiss. But it was all my idea. I mean, I was very covert. I never made those kind of mistakes. The FBI helped me along because they told me anything that you do that's illegal on a state level, on a municipal level, we're okay with because we have the Federal Supremacy Act. We can always save you. But I didn't have any problems, so it didn't happen. Rico, when did Tony drive? What did Tony drive in the 70s? Thanks. He really liked Lincolns. What was he driving in the 70s? He drove a Lincoln. Sometimes he drove a Pontiac. It depends. Oldsmobile. But the same kind of cars I drove. He didn't have just one car. Neither did I. If you went through all the cars I went through in the 70s, I must have had 18, 19 cars in the 70s, more than one a year. And sometimes I had 3, 4 at one time. And Tony was the same way. Tony was big on leasing a car, getting rid of a car, changing around. He did have a Mark. I had a Mark 4, Mark 5 Lincoln. He also had a Cutlass Supreme. I had a Cutlass Supreme. I think he had a 442 at one time. I did. So that was how it went. Hope that answered your question, buddy. Big Tuna, you're just tuning in. Okay, how you doing? Lincolns aren't what they used to be. No, they're not. No, they're not what they used to be. But I happen to drive one of the older ones. Uh, as a matter of fact, I just had new upholstery put in. I had the whole thing reupholstered. The engine's tight. Everything's good on it. Nothing is bad on it. The suspension is great. It rides like a boat. I mean, it's very comfortable. It floats. So I decided, instead of buying a new car, it's got about 130,000 miles on it, but it's very well kept. And I decided, rather than buy a new car, I would just send it out and have it totally reupholstered. And they took, it's dove gray upholstery, so they took a little bit of the upholstering off the one thing. They matched it perfectly. And it's all done in leather. The same exact, it looks like it's factory. Did I spend some money for it? Yeah, I did. But I'm happy with that car. I love it. It's if I need brake work done, anything it does, that's it. It's like, it is what I want. Full Hammer, did I ever meet Joey Glimko? No, Joey Glimko was, he was more or less out in the West Coast. He was part of the union. And Jimmy Koza knew him quite well. And some of the other people knew him quite well that I know. Did I meet him? No. Did I hear about him? Yeah. Yeah, he was a very close friend of Jimmy Hoffa's. And I met Jimmy Hoffa, and he was a powerhouse, man. Stout, tough guy. Very tough guy. But nice, soft-spoken, unless he got angry. When he got angry, he was just like anybody else. I'm that way. If I get angry, I scream, man. I'm not quiet. My language gets foul, too. I have to tell you this, Faux Hammer. You heard he threw acid in somebody's face. I don't know. He might have. There's all kinds of rumors going around. I look at the rumors now, and there's so many rumors going around about different people because they're dead. They can't defend themselves. And there's nobody really around that liked them that could talk to you. So if you heard it from something on the internet or a hearsay from somebody else, I wouldn't put much store in it. Maybe he did. I'm not saying he did. I'm saying it's not his character. Not from what I heard about him. It wasn't like that at all. Gogler, did you ever meet or associate with Frank Collada? No, I did not. He was part of our crew. Did you ever hear Tony mention Frank? Tony and I never spoke about Frank at all. He would say, the guys I was with this job, on the job with, I went on the job and did this with some guys or something like that in his earlier life. But he never mentioned their names, whoever they were. Frank was more of a person that mentioned a lot of names while he was telling his stories. The 79 town car was like a leather couch on wheels. Yeah, I had a 79, and I got rid of it and got an 81, and then I got an 88, and right now I have a 2003, but it's in terrific shape. I actually have a couple of videos of me driving. So I love it. It does ride like, it's really, it rides like a couch on wheels. It's very comfortable. Oh, it was a Senate hearing with Hoffa. Was it a question from one of the senators that turned around and said, are you aware of the fact that Joey Glimko did this or that? Because if you watch the hearings that we have today, even the ones we have today, and we have some Republican senators, they will make some outlandish statements And basically what they're doing is looking for somebody to correct them. Rumors or not, these guys were not out collecting for churches. You're right. They weren't. They certainly weren't. You're welcome, buddy. You're welcome. Rico, hit the like button. Thank you. I'd like to see at least 60, if not more. Please, buddy, do me a favor. It was RFK asking. That doesn't surprise me one bit. He asked Jimmy Hoffa a lot of questions that he didn't have the answers to them. They were just open and slanderous questions. RFK was like that. I've watched the same hearings. I got a kick out of it when he talked to Mr. Giancana or Sam Giancana, and he said, "Do all you people laugh like little girls?" Well, let me ask you something, Fohammer. Do you think they laughed like little girls? So Tony dressed flashy and drove flashy cars. I did also. Didn't anyone tell him to tone it down? No. Phil was kind of his boss, Milwaukee Phil. And Phil never told any of us to turn it down. And I emulated Tony. I wanted to be like Tony. I didn't know how many people he hurt or anything like that. I mean, when we talked, I didn't know anything about that until after he died. And really, I thought it was very cruel of what happened, what they did to him. It was wrong. RFK had an Hoffa squad. He certainly did. Gold Glitter, after Tony and Michael were killed, did you ever see Nancy or speak to her again? I never spoke to Nancy in my life. Whatever happened to Tony's son? He passed away. I think you're talking about Vincent. He passed away. Many years ago, he passed away. Very sad thing. Their whole family, Nancy's put up with a lot. And it just was. Sad, very sad. And I'm sure wouldn't say anything like that to them. It was a question that I watched on the hearings with RFK saying that. He asked Sam Giancana, he said, "Do you all laugh?" He even asked the same question when he laughed at him. One of the other mob guys. He said, "Do you all laugh like little girls?" And no, it's not done like that. Senators can say, how often have you stole money? Open-ended questions are, maybe the guy never stole in his life. Or how many times have you associated with murderers? He just asked some questions that were very leading. Christina Morris, how are you, hon? Good to see you. A friend of mine, Gonf 3602, a friend of mine owned a bar at Clark Street in the 70s. He was kicking up the income from the machines plus percentages on the ticket scalping. Yeah, for the Cubs games, yeah. That's the way it was. That whole Clark Street and Broadway, whatever. If you were down in that area, it was a hot area. If you had a parking lot, they took a piece of it. It was that was the north side. Sean, I hope you don't think I'm being rude. Certain types of people are your friends until the shit hits the fan. Yeah, you're right. And you're not being rude, guy. I hope you. I'm not coming off as rude. I'm giving you the benefit of my experience and knowledge. That's all. No problem, Sean. You're not rude at all. I'm not angry at you. And believe me, I'm the kind of guy who would tell you I'm angry. So at any rate, folks, thank you all for stopping by. And I'll see you next Monday. Before we leave, I have one gold digger, gold glitter. You get my last comment here. Speaking of cars, you guys ever go to Grand Spalding Dodge? I did in my youth. That's where I bought my first Mopar, and I didn't go there with a group of people, but I was also arrested in front of Grand Spalding Dodge on Grand Avenue. That was a long time ago. That's a whole other story. Anyway, I want to thank you guys. You're welcome. You're welcome. And had a good time talking to you. And please subscribe and like the channel if you can. I need all the help I can get. Until then, it's till Monday. And it's Red We Met out. God bless y'all. Every one of you.
The combination of the videotapes and Ouimet's testimony resulted in the conviction of 2 men on extortion charges. One of them was Frank Schweiz, known in syndicate circles as the German, a feared mob terrorist and a suspect in a number of gangland murders.
He was described to me by other outfit individuals as the most feared hitman. And as he said to me, my reputation precedes me, son.